Hello Penguinauts, I'm the Baby Penguin and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Fall of Kerbin. Now last turn we had quite a surprise when Tape attacked our forward operating base with overwhelming numbers of tanks, and yet somehow the combination of the bravery of our Kruolan tankmen and probably the designs of our tanks and the way we placed them meant that we actually managed to repel his attack, and we were left over with 3 cruisers, 2 heavy adders and a single medium adder tank, and Kerthenia's Valley is now ripe for the taking. So what we're doing is we're sending in our 2 heavy adders, so the same as the medium adder, same gun, same design, except they have slightly heavier armour, and that's because there isn't a single tank defending Kerthenia's Valley, but there are some anti-aircraft guns and two 3-inch emplacements, I'm pretty sure, and they act rather well as artillery. And they cannot get through heavy armour, at least at long range. And as Admiral Akbar said, our cruisers can't repel firepower of that magnitude. So, sorry, I'm ashamed of saying that. But yeah, it's completely pointless sending forward our cruiser tanks, which could get knocked out in a single hit. You see, they're just bouncing off of our adders here. But if we sent our cruiser tanks forward, they would almost certainly get wiped out by a single hit. So we're not going to risk it. There's little point in risking anything. I'm just going to advance quite slowly, put some pot shots in, take out a few of the emplacements, take out most of the 40mm emplacements at long range until it's just the 3-inch emplacements left, raining down fire on top of us. It really is quite annoying. These anti-aircraft guns really are quite effective at as artillery batteries, and one of our tanks takes a hit which actually knocks its engine out, so it continues for a little longer, but it soon gets left behind by the lead tank, which is a little annoying. So now we can only storm Kerthenia's Valley with a single tank, and well, we're going to have to wait till next turn till we can actually repair that tank, because our supply chain is yet to catch up to us, which means we're not going to even be able to build any anti-aircraft guns at Kerthenia's Valley. This is a big risk, actually, taking this base, as Tape even mentioned in his video last turn. We are very, very, very vulnerable to counterattack here, so this is a bit of a gamble, but if the gamble pays off, war could be over by Christmas, so that's certainly a gamble worth taking in my books. And Tape's lost his advantage in terms, well, numbers of tanks now, so Tape's lost pretty much every advantage he has. But anyway, we managed to get ourselves up the hill, you see, in the rather blinding snow, and we managed to take out yet another of Tape's emplacements. Until now, all that's left is a single 3-inch emplacement and a 40mm emplacement. However, they're tucked away, sort of behind a little ridge, so it can keep firing at me, which is very annoying, but I have quite a high velocity, I think it's even a super velocity gun. And so, when I fire this gun, the shell goes pretty much in a straight line. Not so much with that 3-inch, so it can keep lobbing shots over the hill. I can't shoot at it, which means I'm going to have to go over the hill and engage at point-blank range. Thing is, when you get to point-blank range, even a high explosive, low-velocity shell can be dangerous to a tank like this when it's at absolute point-blank and you can't actually miss. Pretty much anything becomes able to get through the armour of this tank, so I just sort of blunder over the top of the hill, take a first hit, it bounces off. I'm pretty confident. We take out the 40mm, but then a 3-inch shell blasts straight through a tiny bit of exposed side armour and straight out the back of the tank. It ignites our ammunition rack and the crew is killed. Yeah, not particularly ideal. We have a very limited number of tanks and we can't immediately reinforce because, of course, our supply chain is it's a full base away. It's 200 kilometers away, I believe. So I really didn't need that, and our other heavy tank is sitting at the bottom of the hill with no engine. So now we have no choice but to send in the cruiser. I don't want to send in the other adder, because it actually has the same armor thickness as our cruiser tanks, and it's a bigger target. It has a better gun, but the better gun doesn't really count for much. It's an unarmored emplacement tucked behind a hill. So really, we just need something fast, maneuverable, and we just need to overwhelm it with sheer numbers. So hopefully we can confuse it, and it won't be able to, take on. We'll have 3 things firing at it. So hopefully we can just kill it before it shoots any of our tanks. And this was very nerve-wracking, driving these 3 cruisers, dodging about all the time, trying to avoid incoming artillery fire, and a few of them came very close, but thankfully we managed to get to the top of the hill and all 3 of our cruisers fire and we take it out. Kerthenia's Valley is ours, although we did lose a tank, which was very unfortunate. Anyway, we haven't given up on attacking Osiris Fortress. We're going to be sailing in with our full naval might next turn, and we're going to continue softening things up. Tape has 4 frigates, yet for some reason he didn't go submarine hunting last turn, so yet another one of our submarines has slipped through his defences and just savaged his fleet. Here, I think we hit a magazine, and this light cruiser just explodes so violently, pieces of it fly into space. Tape really should have put some torpedo nets up. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't, saying that he's kind of short of supply units at the moment, considering, you know, I'm flattening all his cities. But we aren't going to give his troops or his CM any time to recover from that night attack. And at first light, we're sending out our first wave of torpedo bombers. Of course, our carriers are now in range of Osiris Fortress, and even though we could almost certainly win next turn's naval battle without doing this, I want to have every last advantage at my disposal. There is no point getting complacent and just thinking, it's fine, we don't need to do the carrier attack, soften up the enemy, we probably win. No, I want to have an overwhelming superiority in numbers and firepower next turn. I cannot risk losing next turn's naval battle. So we are going to be, of course, throwing the full might of the Fleet Air Arm at Osiris Fortress beforehand. And the biggest threat, as we acknowledged last turn, are these battle cruisers. They have 12-inch guns, which could hurt our battleships. Tape will almost certainly be launching a battleship with 16-inch guns next turn, but that's just one target. If he has an armada of ships with 12-inch guns, that could really pose a big problem to us. So that is our first target once again. Last turn we failed to sink it because we underestimated the amount of torpedoes we'd actually need to take it down. So this turn it's going to be our primary target for both of our carriers. I actually cut out most of these torpedo runs. You see, it takes quite a while to get away and evade all the anti-aircraft fire, so I'm just cutting it down to just the torpedo runs, which are obviously the most dangerous and most exciting part of the actual attack, because we did a lot of these this turn, and I mean a lot of these. So yeah, I thought I might as well just cut them down. As you see, the anti-aircraft fire isn't too effective right now. Maybe they had a long night last night, and we got them up quite early in the morning, so the Kerthenian gunners are... Whoa, hello! I spoke a little too soon, actually. Some of their gunnery is starting to get a little bit more accurate as the sailors actually wake up and get to their action stations. Surprisingly, the first torpedo just misses the USS Thor, and it strikes the light cruiser just behind it. I thought it would just miss entirely, but no, it actually blows the bow off of this light cruiser. We don't do any more damage to it throughout the turn. So Tape can almost certainly just repair that, but it is a little funny that we didn't actually waste that torpedo, it just hit a different ship. Anyway, final torpedo run, we're going in. The second torpedo is heading towards it at a good speed, and we want to get a third torpedo away because, well, in practice it's taken about 4 of these torpedoes to sink a ship, but these are quite large, quite tough, quite well armoured ships, so we're going to bargain on about 5 or 6 in order to sink this properly. As I've said in previous turns, you can't afford to bargain on just damaging a ship when it's in harbour, because it can just be floated as a coastal gun battery, or it can just be repaired while it's in harbour. So really we have to completely obliterate this ship in order to remove it from the up-and-coming naval battle. The first torpedo hits it near midships really, and the second torpedo hits it near the bow. Anyway, time to go for the second torpedo run. Of course, there are only 2 aircraft in this wave because one of them got shot down last turn during a torpedo attack, which was not particularly good fun. No, not last turn. Turn before last turn. It's taking a little while to get around the... I don't know what to say. I guess the headland next to Osiris Fortress. It's quite a strange sort of bit of geography. It's quite interesting though, but it takes a long time to get to and from Osiris Fortress. Anyway, here we go. First torpedo away without any real problems. And we get out of there without worrying too much. And there we go. So then we go, second torpedo. As I said, we do this a lot today. Lots of torpedo runs, lots of attacks. It's it's not particularly diverse, this episode. It is mainly just me trying to sink the USS Thor, which is quite a difficult task considering it is a big ship with lots of armour. And I don't know, this thing just would not die for whatever reason. You see, the first torpedo strikes it and it does some more damage, blows off some more armor panels. It's still afloat. Still afloat. Second torpedo goes in. It's still afloat. This thing just refused to sink. That's 4 torpedoes. That's how many torpedoes it's taken to sink pretty much every other ship we've ever torpedoed. It is listing, but it is not dead. Thankfully, last turn we secretly dispatched 2 more carriers to our forward operating base, which is thankfully within range of Osiris Fortress. So we have another 2 waves of carrier aircraft. Yeah. This is what comes from having naval superiority. If Tape still had a CS front, he would be able to stop us doing this easily, and we would have had to defend these 2 carriers with an entire fleet. Thankfully, Tape's entire navy is holed up here in Osiris Fortress, so we can just essentially launch as many carriers as we want and just completely flatten it. This time we're doing a bit of a, I don't want to say dive bombing, because it's too dangerous to dive bomb. Well, and certainly when the ships are away, it's not nighttime, the ships are, you know, fully effective with the anti-aircraft fire. So we're just doing some level bombing attacks. We get the AI pilot. It actually behaves itself for once and actually does the level bombing attack. It's very hit or miss whether the AI pilot will ever actually drop its own bombs, but this time it does it rather well. So let's switch to the ships and have a look at the result. The first bomb actually hits the frigate just to the left of the USS Thor, and 1 bomb is enough to just completely destroy it. Not that it really mattered, because that isn't going to make much of an impact in the up-and-coming naval battle. Second bomb actually misses, and the third bomb manages to get a glancing hit on the USS Thor, but no significant damage. We're going to have to finish this ship with some more torpedoes. So the final wave is going to be another torpedo wave. I've found that dive bombing, it really works quite well against the smaller ships, destroyers, frigates, even light cruisers, but for the larger ships, you really need to be using torpedoes. You're not really going to make much progress if you bomb a battleship or a heavy cruiser with a 1,600-pound bomb. It just, you can't really get through the deck armour and get at the vital internals, which is what you really need to get at. You can only really do that with smaller ships. So here we go, final attack wave, and we are bombing the USS Thor for the umpteenth time, and hopefully this time we'll actually sink it. Unfortunately, we were diving from a little bit of a too high of an altitude here, so we gained a lot of speed in the dive. We dived a little too late, and as I said, we dived from way too high up, so we're going very, very fast, and just to add insult to injury, we dropped the torpedo way too high above the water, and the torpedo is destroyed on impact. That was completely my fault. We dived way too fast. We were way too close, and we dropped the torpedo too high, so the torpedo just got completely destroyed. So we've wasted one of our last 3 chances to sink the USS Thor. Not going so well, so 2 more chances. That should hopefully be enough to sink it, right? So 2 more torpedoes. Surely 6 torpedoes will be enough to sink this battle cruiser. So here we go. This one we actually turn the engine off periodically to make sure we don't go too fast. And there we go. We drop it at just the correct speed. I accidentally swapped to another aircraft. But there we go. Torpedoes away. Perfect. Okay, perfect torpedo run. And there we go. Let's get that aircraft out of there. Not a problem. Okay, now let's just be sure. Now that torpedo should hopefully be enough to sink it, but you can never be too careful. So we're going to go in and we're going to attack this. Unfortunately, Tape launched another light cruiser last turn, so even though we sunk one with our submarine earlier, there's still another one, and a 5-inch anti-aircraft shell comes in and just obliterates our bomber before it can drop its torpedo. Very annoying, but thankfully that one torpedo does get through, and it seems that that is just enough. That is just about the tipping point, excuse the pun, to actually make the USS Thor capsize and sink into the harbour. Thank God. That was a little too close for my liking. We could have wasted an entire turn's worth of carrier attacks on that ship and not have it sink. But thankfully, it's sunk. So that's 1 less battle cruiser to worry about next turn. Anyway, in other news, in the north, we are continuing our strategic bombing campaign. However, we're not going against Rockdale in the south. We're going up against Springwood in the north, and we're just dropping £10,000 worth of bombs on this. Not a £12,000 tall boy. The whole point of the tall boy is you use it to smash your heavily armoured things, or it's just to drop £12,000 of explosive in one go, so you can get out of there quickly. It takes quite a long time. You have to fly right over the city to get an entire carpet of £10,000 bombs away. And when we bombed Rockdale before, we had a rocket interceptor to worry about, so I needed to get out of there as fast as possible. But Springwood actually has no defences whatsoever, not a single anti-aircraft gun, so we can fly straight over with impunity and bomb it. But Beardy, Why don't you bomb Rockdale? Well, we've got something special for Rockdale. Yes, a K2 ballistic missile. Is this completely unnecessary? Probably. I just thought it would be fun, really, to show off the technological might of the Kruolan Union. Thing is, Rockdale has quite a lot of nasty anti-aircraft guns. It has 88mm, 76mm, 40mm, and I don't really want to risk my bomber. We can't even afford any fighter cover because we can't afford to lose a single fighter aircraft, because we really do need to be trying to fight Tape's air force and gain air superiority over the next few turns, well, at least to try and guarantee our tank's safety at Kerthenia's Valley. So I thought, what's a guaranteed way of delivering £3,000 worth of damage to a city? Why not use a ballistic missile? Only a short-range ballistic missile, but here you have it. I mean, this is far more advanced than the actual V2 was in reality. In reality, the V2 used a very simple guidance system involving gyroscopes in order to control the fins to keep it on course, and obviously a much less sophisticated rocket engine. Didn't have any kind of gimbal like this, but still I think it's a pretty decent replica of the V2. It does carry a bit more explosive. We allow our wonder weapons to carry up to £3,000 worth of high explosive, and it turns out we dropped a £12,000 bomb on Rockdale before, and you need to do £15,000 worth of bomb damage to destroy a city. So £3,000 worth of bomb damage. Hello, K2 ballistic missile. As I said, this was probably not at all necessary, but I thought it would be kind of fun, and we have supply units to spare, unlike Tape, who very much does not have supply units to spare, and certainly is going to have even less to spare after we destroy yet another one of his cities. This is probably the first time I've actually properly used the map view in Fall of Kerbin. Usually you do things on a tactical level, you don't really have to use the map view, and we certainly don't go into orbit or have ballistic trajectories particularly often. But yeah, here we go. We've actually got our first rocket-powered, well, not the first rocket-powered thing, rocket-powered aircraft, but our first rocket, really, in Kerbal Space Program. It's taken till the 3rd season of this series in order to have an actual rocket in a Kerbal Space Program series. That's a little... I know, it says a lot about how weird this series really is, doesn't it? But yeah, there you go. A lot of people have been demanding V2s for a while, and if you actually followed my Twitter, you'll have known that I've been working on this for a little while. So those of you who are excited about what I'm building, don't be afraid to go check out @BeardyPenguin, my Twitter. Shameless plug there. I don't really promote it much, but people who do actually follow my Twitter get really do enjoy the fact they get to see things while I'm building them, such as this K2 ballistic missile. I put a bit of testing up on there. So if you are interested in that sort of thing, then do go check it out. Anyway, here we are. We are very rapidly approaching Rockdale here at supersonic speeds. What's the bet that those anti-aircraft guns are going to be able to stop this? I mean, Kerthenian gunners can't even stop a subsonic aircraft from bombing their ships. I highly doubt they can stop a supersonic missile. 88mm anti-aircraft gun or not, but it doesn't mean they're not going to try. They do actually shoot a couple of pot shots at us. As you see, there's the 88mm. It does actually open up and fire a little, I guess, a warning shot, but it can't stop us at all. And the missile actually splits at the last second. It's a cluster missile, far more advanced than the actual V2 was, and we flatten Rockdale. Eat that, Kerthenian populace. I mean, it does call into question whether strategic bombing is even necessary at this point in the war, but yeah, that's a question for another day. Anyway, we've put our 3 remaining aircraft from last turn, 2 of which crashed on the runway and 1 of which escaped, so we've brought those back and repaired them, and 5 aircraft from this turn, and a TE-262 Raven, and those are what are going to be defending our tanks from strafing and bombing runs next turn, because of course our supply chain hasn't quite caught up to us yet, so they are very vulnerable to aircraft attack. They don't have any anti-aircraft guns. And finally, we have our Osiris invasion fleet just sitting off the coast of Osiris Fortress. Now, I don't know whether Tape is actually going to attack us next turn. He might want to forego another turn of carrier bombing, or he might want to stay in Osiris Fortress, you know, use the defensive sort of terrain to his advantage, and of course his coastal batteries. We shall have to see, but it's not looking good for him. There's a sort of rough parity between ship numbers, but we do outnumber him, we do outgun him, our ships are better, and our crews are better trained, and we're Kruolan, god damn it. So I think we have that naval battle in the bag, but even so, it is going to be a battle for the ages, and I do hope you will join me next episode. Thank you for watching, everyone. I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.